Let's talk about land trusts. Hiding your ownership of real estate. Why would you want to do that? Okay, let me show you something. There's a local guy named Joshua Jennings. Does anyone know this guy? He markets himself as the real estate shark. Okay, now he's been putting out how he lived in like Section 8 housing and he was on welfare and all this stuff, and he built his own portfolio of properties. So I was curious about this. I knew he was from Orangeburg, so I popped in his last name and look what popped up. These are all his parents' properties. Now, that being said, if Joshua wants to make his money that way, be my guest. Okay, that's not my business. But I will tell you this: his parents, as good as they were to get those properties, are not very good at protecting it. That's what Randy's here for tonight. All right. Let's say, for example, I get into a car accident with Joshua. Well, actually, Joshua's parents are right now. They're not his properties yet. With Joshua's parents. Okay. And let's say I scream whiplash. I scream and call Akeem. Okay, Akeem's going to put their name in here and say, look here, all this property. Now, my client wants to sue you for $2 million, or if you give them $100,000, they'll just drop the suit and go away forever. What do you think they're going to choose? Right. It's a lot less expensive, it's quicker, easier. Okay? That's what they do. They try to settle out of court. For every 10 cases they settle out of court, they might take one to trial. Okay? So that's why they want to hide what you own. If Joshua's parents' names weren't out there, you know, an attorney, especially a contingency fee attorney, one who only gets paid if you get paid, what are the chances he's going to take that? Pretty low, if at all. Okay. Okay. I wish Stephen was here tonight. Anyway. Now, oh yeah, one day Joshua's going to inherit these properties. Okay. People hear the terms generational wealth a lot. But what good is generational wealth if it's all out there and it's too easy for someone to find it and possibly steal it from you? What's the point? Okay? You build wealth, hide it, and protect it. All right? Anyway. Second case. Now, I wish Stephen was here. Stephen bought a house, subject to. All right? Does everyone know what subject to is? Everyone, okay, it's an informal loan assumption. Basically, you're having the seller deed you the house and leave the mortgage in their name. Okay? Every mortgage that I know of now has something called an acceleration clause. It's a due-on-sale clause. If ownership changes, they have the right to call the entire balance of the loan. Okay, I want to show you something. This is Stevens LLC, Chic REI Solutions. This is public record. It's pretty obvious ownership has changed. Now, if their mortgage company, it used to be Countrywide Mortgage Agency, if they had seen this, I can almost guarantee you they would call this due on sale. What I would have done is I would have put this into a land trust, and I would have called it, what's this guy's name? DeGraff and Reed. It was the seller, so it's subject to. I would have called it the DeGraff and Reed Family Trust. Okay? He doesn't own it. The name of a trust has no bearing on who owns it. It's the underlying trust agreement. That's what Randy's going to show us. Okay? That's what I would have done. So that's another reason to use a land trust. When you're buying creatively with a subject to. All right? Anyway, land trust. You get a lottery raffle ticket?
Yes.
Okay. Everyone has a raffle ticket?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you don't have one? Okay, I'll get your raffle ticket. Okay, anyway. Now let's talk about Randy. Randy, I apologize. I probably babbled too much, okay? I have nothing but the utmost respect for Randy. He's been coming here like every 2 years, year and a half or so since 2016, something like that.
Long time,
Yeah. And anyway, I'm convinced of Randy's stuff. I have all this stuff, so he doesn't have to sell me anything. Okay? So, but anyway, Randy's been investing for over 50 years. How old are you?
Right.
Well, I've been a landlord for 53 years, and I started when I was 19, so you can figure it out from there. I don't want to say it out loud.
You look, I mean, good Lord, you don't want a day under.
I know.
I work very hard.
Okay. Anyway, Randy also teaches real estate investment courses throughout the United States at colleges, universities, and also at REIAs like this one. Okay. He's the author of numerous articles on real estate. He's an expert witness in court cases involving land trusts, specifically in California and Illinois. So he knows a little bit about this stuff, okay? and he's licensed as a continuing ed instructor for the Illinois Realtors. Okay? If we could we welcome Randy up and give him a little bit of
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that.
do you need this?
Yes, I will. Yeah, I'm trying to find the mouse. That's the problem. Okay. Never mind you. Maximize me. Good?
Yeah. This is a laser pointer.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yeah, the back comes off easy, so be careful.
Anything else, Bob?
No.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me again, Bob. I always like coming to South Carolina. It only takes me 3 plane rides to get here. I came from Champaign, Illinois. Has anybody ever heard of Champaign, Illinois? Where the University of Illinois is. And I've been there most of my life. Like I said, I started buying houses when I was in college at 19. And when I graduated from college, I had 3 houses, and I went to work for an insurance company. It was 1973, and we were having a recession, and nobody was hiring at all except insurance companies, because they'll hire anybody with a temperature, right? And so they hired me. And I got married, and my wife and I lived below our means for 20 years. We took every extra dime we had, and we bought houses. And we didn't take any money out of our business for 20 years. We've lived off of our jobs. But I can now tell you at this point in my life that I'm awfully glad I did that. Because, you know, and I'll show you the very first house I bought here, you know how much houses have gone up in value in that time period. And I don't see an end to that right now. A lot of governments will do like, well, I've got a lady friend in Mexico. Her mother inherited like 40-some houses. And she lived off those houses until she couldn't do the management anymore. So she said, well, I'm going to sell all those houses and put the money in the bank and live off the interest. Which would have worked, except about a year after she did that, the Mexican government said, we're going to move the decimal point over in everybody's bank account. That's another form of inflation. It's just rapid inflation instead of what our government does, which is slow inflation. So if you have $1 million in your bank account and they move the decimal point over, you got $100,000. You just lost $900,000. There are all forms of inflation, and while most people think inflation is bad, I wouldn't mind paying $50 for a gallon of milk if I've got 50 houses that are going up at 10% a year, right? So you just got to get into the game is really what it boils down to. Because you can't beat the system, you got to join it. But we all want to be successful, we all want to make money, but the oxymoron of this whole business is the more successful you are, the bigger target you are to be seen. And I'm going to give you some real life stories tonight, things that have happened to me and have happened to my students, that will hopefully convince you to never own real estate in your name. And if you own it now, get off the title as quick as you can. Because after 5 decades in this business, I've seen a lot of these crazy things happen that you would never imagine would happen. And you'd be awfully glad if you protect your assets and learn how to do that now. You can't buy insurance on your house when it's on fire, can you? And you can't run out and buy car insurance when you're sitting in the intersection after an accident. So everybody in here has car insurance, and everybody in here has homeowners insurance. So you're already thinking in this way. You just need to put that onto your real estate investments, because your real estate investments are going to be much more valuable than your personal residence or your car. So asset protection is something you have to do when you don't need it. That's what it boils down to. There's a term in the asset protection world that's called old and cold matters. And that means the older and colder your documentation, the greater it's going to protect you. In other words, you can't go into court and say, Your Honor, well, I don't own that property, or blah, blah, blah. And the judge says, well, wait a minute, your document is dated yesterday. You put this into trust yesterday? That ain't going to work. That won't fly. The judge will reverse it in a heartbeat. But if you say, Your Honor, I put this in trust 10 years ago for my children's college fund, that's going to hold water. So here's what our society and our legal system has devolved into. These are inserts from my local newspaper. I got 4 of them here. Small print, every piece of real estate in my county is in my hands. Isn't that interesting? Now, you wouldn't do this, and I wouldn't do this, but some people would do this with this information. Anthony Donato. Wow, he's got a lot of property. Gives me his name, where the property is. I mean, how much easier could it be for me to stumble on that property tomorrow and hurt myself? He must be rich. He owns all this property. You see how the game is played? So your first line of defense, the easiest and cheapest thing that you can do to protect your assets is don't own this stuff in your name. So you need to, when you buy real estate, you buy it directly from the seller. You take title from that seller directly into your trust, so you're never in the chain of title. Your name is nowhere. That is the best way to buy real estate. Okay, so that's my disclaimer, which says I'm not a lawyer or an accountant giving any legal or accounting advice. Let's see if it works. How do we get it to work? Okay. Now it's working. Or at least that is. I don't know. I think I was doing it. There we go. Okay, thank you. It must have been your touch button. So you're about to discover how protecting your assets can actually cut your costs. If we cut our costs, don't we increase profits? So that's a good thing, right? We're going to make bigger profits when we sell. We're going to eliminate the risk of selling notes and contracts. Anybody in here in the note business? Are you buying and selling notes? How about contracts? Any contract assignments? So that's one of the great things about these kind of REIAs, these groups of real estate investors, and why you need to be a member. You come to here, there are a lot of people, I call them bird dogs. They can find a deal, but they can't close it. Maybe they don't have a good enough credit rating, or they don't have any cash or whatever, but they're really good at finding deals and negotiating. And they'll come to a meeting like this and they'll stand up and say, hey, I got a deal over on Vine Street, and it's worth $100,000, here's the appraisal. But I got a contract for $75,000. You give me $5,000 now, and I'll assign my contract to you. And you'll pick up the 20. So good reasons to come to these meetings, especially when you're talking to bird dogs. Combined with the LLC. Does anybody even have an LLC? Everybody has an LLC, right? And that's a good thing. The problem is that your attorneys have all told you to put the title to the real estate into the LLC, right? I don't want to do that. I'm going to title my real estate in the trust, and I'm going to make the beneficiary of the trust the LLC. Why?
Because, well, one of the reasons is that you can still find people's information even with the LLC. I was looking at some of those, and I just.
That's true. Unless you form your LLC in Wyoming, Nevada, or Delaware, they don't publish their owners. All the other states publish their owners, so there goes your anonymity, right? So that's problem number one. Problem number two is, let's think about this logically. Let's say you have 10 single-family rental properties, and you title them all in one LLC. And there's a lawsuit on one property. It doesn't have anything to do with the other 9. They sue, they win, they get a judgment against the owner. Who's the owner? The LLC. It owns all 10 of them, right? So now they have a judgment against all your property. You can't sell, you can't refinance, you can't do anything. That wasn't very smart, was it? So a basic tenet of asset protection is separation of assets. Whether it's stocks, bonds, real estate, whatever it is. Didn't Grandma teach us you don't put all your eggs in one basket? That's the old theory. Because if you drop the basket, you're going to break all your eggs, right? So you don't put all your real estate in any one thing. Not one trust, not one corporation, not one LLC. So we start at the top by separating our assets, putting each property in its own separate trust. Now those will flow down to one or more LLC, but we want to start with the trust. Bob, is there a chance you could get me a water, please? Thank you. Has anybody heard of the Corporate Transparency Act? Oh, it's a doozy. Another federal boondoggle. And you need to do this right now, unless they change things. You need to do this by December 31st, or there are huge penalties. $500 a day and jail time for non-compliance. That is, you have to register your corporation or LLC with the federal government. They're putting together a national registry of entities. So, goodbye Wyoming, Nevada, and Delaware as far as privacy goes, because if you believe that the government's going to keep that confidential, then I got some land in Florida to study. The Corporate Transparency Act, you need to look it up and comply with it by December 31st if they don't rescind it, which we're running out of time here. Avoid frivolous lawsuits. That's really what we're talking about here, folks. I'm not telling you you should use a trust to avoid your responsibilities in life and not pay your bills and screw people over. I teach you this stuff to protect you, your assets, and your family, and the entire future of your family, your kids, your grandkids. It's a dynasty situation. So if somebody stops that short, it affects generations. So here's how that works. In the year 2000, I sold a house that I lived in with my wife and my 2 daughters. 6 months after closing, I got a letter from the buyer's attorney. Said, "Dear Mr. Hughes, my client had to buy a new central air conditioning unit, replace some wood flooring, and replace all the toilets in the house. If you'll just send us a check for $8,000, we won't sue you." Well, what? That's what I said. What? Am I responsible for maintenance after I sell a property? That's crazy. But it's the art of intimidation. These contingency fee lawyers send these letters out. We must send out 5 or 10 a day. And if you're not prepared, it scares you. And you say, "Oh, God, I want to sue you. You know, here's $8,000 and leave me alone." Or all I got's $5,000 when you settle for $5. And they make easy money sending these letters out. But I was prepared. And I sent him a letter back and I said, "Dear Mr. Lawyer, I didn't own the house. Yeah, I lived there, but I didn't own it." He sent me a letter back. He said, "Well, my client said you lived in the house." True. Some people in America live in houses they don't own, right? "And if you'll just tell us who the owner was, we won't sue you." So I sent him a letter back. I said, "Dear Mr. Lawyer, I don't know who the owner was. It was some kind of a trust, I think. It sounds complicated to me. I know really understand trust. And my last line in the letter says, good luck finding the owner. And you know what happened? No. He didn't even have the courtesy to send me a letter back. Nothing. What does that tell you? I figured he probably had a conversation, something like this with his client. Well, Bob, it's not going to be as easy to screw this guy as the last 5 people we sent this letter to. What do you want to do? I'll go after this trust. I'll be glad. Yeah, that's a lawyer's business. I'll go after the trust. But Bob, all I need you to do is get your checkbook out and write a check to my escrow account for $10,000 to get us started. And every month I'm going to send you a letter telling you how many hours I look for this trust. And Bob said, hey man, I'm not in this game to spend money. I'm in this game to make money. And they just disappeared. That's how the game is played. But you gotta be prepared. Gotta be prepared. The tool of the smart investor, don't let it intimidate you. It's just a few pieces of paper. Like I said, and I know some of you came in after I said this, but on Saturday, when we do the training, you're going to form your first trust. So you get the feel for it, and you can see just how easy it really is. It's just a few pieces of paper. It's called, some people call it a land trust, but it's not exclusive to land. You can put any kind of real estate, and I'll give you a list here of all the stuff you can put in there. But some people call it a title holding trust. The IRS calls it a grantor revocable trust. Revocable means you can change it, as opposed to irrevocable that you can't change, theoretically. You need 2 things. You need a trust agreement and a deed and trust. The trust agreement, think of it like this facility here. They had to build this facility first before they brought in the furniture, right? So think of the trust agreement as the building, and the real estate is what we bring in after the building's built, by deed. We need 2 parties. We need a trustee and a beneficiary. Now the trustee can be anybody. There are no qualifications to be a trustee, no licensing requirements, no continuing education. You just have to have a temperature, which most people in this room probably did, right? So we all can be trustees. You could be my trustee, I could be your trustee. Now there are professional trustees out there, but they're going to charge you a fee, which is reasonable. Nobody works for free. Or you can be your friend's trustee, and they can be your trustee, whatever you want to work out. And I'll give you a lot of good ideas. On Saturday, I have a basic home study course. This is what we're going to talk through on Saturday. And there's a whole chapter in here on who can be and who should be your trustee. Thank you. You have to go to Lexington.
I should have brought water.
And the cost of creating a trust, 0. If you do it yourself. Now, if you hire it done, and I do have people occasionally that I'll speak to in a group like this, and they'll come up afterwards and say, yeah, I really like the concept of the trust, but I don't want to do it myself. Can you refer me to an attorney? And I say, yeah, I can. She charges $2,500 per trust. So how many of those can you stand? My home study course that teaches you how to do this and provides all the forms is $597. And you're done for life. You can create trust for the rest of your life at no cost. Because it's not like, what's it cost to register an LLC in this state?
$125.
And that's each year?
No, one time.
No annual fee? Well, it's a great deal. The problem is, it's not a good law. It's not a good law. Number one, the problem is, we can look up who owns an LLC in South Carolina, can't we?
Yes.
And the other thing is, if you have a single member LLC, you have no charging order protection. And charging order protection is important in the asset protection aspect of an LLC, which means that if your creditor gets you into court, they can't take the LLC away from you if there's charging order protection, which you don't have in the state. So that means that the creditor in this state could take your entire LLC away from you. If you have charging order protection, they can only take what's distributed out of the LLC. Any distributions would go to your creditor. But you've got the decision as to whether any distributions are going to come out or not. So you can see it puts you in a much better negotiating position to resolve an issue with the creditor. You don't have that with a single member LLC formed in South Carolina, and most all other states as well. Okay, what can we put in these trusts? Oops, all kinds of real estate. Kentucky Fried Chicken, an apartment building, a single-family house, this building, commercial buildings, hotels, all kinds of real estate can go in there. Air rights, mineral rights. I had a guy called me from Kentucky a few years ago, and he said, I want to buy your homestead course. I said, great, what are you going to do with it? He said, well, I've got 1,500 oil and gas leases in Kentucky. And I don't want to put them all into one thing, because some of them I know are going to go boom and some of them are going to go bust. So I don't want the bad ones to affect the good ones. So he bought my course for $597, and he created 1,500 land trusts. Can you imagine? He must have saved $200,000 in legal fees. But you can do that yourself. And you can put all kinds of real estate in. Welcome, come on in. Who can do this? Are there any qualifications, licensing requirements, classes to take? Entities can form trusts, individuals can form trusts, partnerships, everybody can form a trust. There's no licensing requirement. Okay? Do we have any attorneys in the room? Okay. Why should we use a trust to make more money? Well, you get privacy and asset protection at the same time. You make greater profits with a trust than without it. They're excellent asset protection tools when combined with the LLC. Because most real estate investors will make the beneficiary of their trust an LLC. Because when you put your property into a trust, it's not that there's no more liability. The liability flows through the trust to the beneficiary. So that's why you want to make the beneficiary an LLC to get more asset protection. Okay? And they're free. And you can do it yourself with just a little instruction on my part. And then once I help you get that first trust created, you can put that on your computer, and it's a template that you can just use over and over again. And it'll literally take you 5 minutes to create a trust. But you need the education first, so you know what you're doing. Who's not using this profit and privacy tool? Well, real estate investors that put their name on the title. Don't do that. It's not worth it. And especially, don't go on the title of somebody else. Especially. Because here's how that works in real life. In the year 1985, I bought a shopping center with a friend of mine. And I insisted on putting the title to that shopping center in a land trust. Fast forward to the year 2000. He moves out of Illinois. He moves to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and becomes a very successful real estate developer, making millions of dollars a year. Until when? Anybody got a guess when that stopped?
Yeah.
Thank you. 2008. The world came down on him. And the last time I talked to him, he had $23 million worth of liens and judgments against him personally. Can you imagine the weight of that on your shoulders? But I was only concerned about one of them. One little old me. You see, he hasn't lived in Illinois at this point for 15 years. But a bank in Florida came all the way from Florida up to Illinois and filed what's called a memorandum of judgment, which means if you own anything in your name, I got it. And that judgment was for $3.2 million. If I had not insisted on putting the title to that shopping center in a trust, I would have just lost everything. Can you imagine going home tonight and saying, honey, we lost everything today. Everything we've worked 20 years for. We lost it all. And I didn't do a thing to deserve it. I was totally unrelated to his bank loan. That's why you never, ever, ever go on a deed with somebody. Not even your spouse. It's worse than being married.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you might as well not come home.
So I don't think you should go on a deed at all. Everything should go into your trust. But if you don't believe me, certainly don't go on a deed with anybody else, because everything that happens to them will happen to you. That's what happens when you go on a deed with somebody. Please don't do that. So hopefully you're going to join the club of really, really smart real estate investors. Okay? I'll coach you through that first trust agreement. I answer my phone. Now, 9 out of 10 of your questions will be answered by my home specialist. But you probably have some additional questions. So you pick up the phone and you call me, and I do something really unusual in America today. I answer my phone. And you know what? I actually have a voicemail box. If I'm on the other line with a student, I have a voicemail box that's not full. And it's been set up. This technology we have today. I answer my phone from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Central Time, 7 days a week. Who does that? Nobody does that. But I love talking about trust. I love giving back to a business that's been very good to me, and that's why I do it. I found this information in a magazine I was reading, and I put it on the slide thinking you might find it of interest. Do you see yourself up there anywhere?
Yeah.
Maybe more than once. We're right up there at the top. Owners of real estate. Why is that? Lawyers love to sue us because we can't get rid of that stuff fast. If you have $100,000 in cash and you get sued, you can get rid of that $100,000 pretty fast. If you go to Vegas and put it on black, you're on it, and this is win. You know? But you can't get rid of that 50-unit apartment building very fast. And that takes us back to the newspaper. The first thing a lawyer will do, they will investigate you. You won't even know what happened. But they want to know, are they going to get paid? Lawyers aren't stupid. They don't sue poor people, do they? No, because they're not going to get paid. So the first thing they do is they type your name into the county records and find out what you own. Then they decide if they're going to sue you or not. Now, what's interesting to me is that note at the bottom, I don't know if you can read that, it says 97% of lawsuits filed don't even go to trial. Well, what's that tell you? They settle. That's right. So it's all a game of settlement, isn't it? What's your name, sir? Sonny. Sonny? So I run over to Sonny's dog. Sonny goes to his lawyer and says, I want to sue that Randy Hughes for $1 million. He killed my dog. And Sonny's lawyer says, what was his name? Randy Hughes? He turns to his computer and he types in my name in the county recorder's office website. Now, if that printer starts printing page after page of properties that are in my name, cha-ching.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, Sonny, I think we got a pretty good case. Now, if we do this scenario again and he types in my name and the printer doesn't budge, nothing. Now he turns to Sonny and says, "No, Sonny, I'm not, you know, I'm really not positive we have a good case here, but I'm pretty sure we do. But I just need to get your checkbook out. Make out a check, it's only $10,000 each starter. And I'll go sue him." What do you think Sonny's gonna do? Get a new dog, right? Probably walk away. So, again, your first line of defense is just not be in that county recorder's office website. That's easy to do. It's not expensive to do. Now, if you start to get, you're very successful in this business, and you build up a net worth of several $1 million, then it's probably worth it for you to get into more sophisticated trust arrangements. And there are much more sophisticated trust arrangements out there. I've got a guy at a law firm down in Texas trying to sell me a $45,000 trust. Why would you ever pay that much money for a trust?
I was gonna ask, what does that even look like when you say more sophisticated stuff?
It's very sophisticated. It converts a lot of personal expenses to business expenses. You live off the trust, you pay very low taxes, and all gains are deferred forever. It's actually a combination of two trusts, but, you know, so if I save 50 grand a year in taxes, I'll give you 45,000 to get that started, because I'm gonna save 50 for the rest of my life. But you gotta start somewhere, right? And let's start with something that doesn't cost anything, we can do ourselves, and get that protection element started, and we'll work into the more expensive stuff later. So I'm not really here to scare you as much as to try to prepare you for your future success. Now's the time to do it. Not later, but now. It's kind of like a hurdle. Anybody run track in high school? Yeah, who got around the track the fastest? The guys with hurdles or the guys without hurdles? Without hurdles, obviously, right? Sure. So the more hurdles we can throw out in front of them, the more it's going to slow it down, make it expensive, and make it aggravating, and they'll just go sue somebody else. You don't need to worry about Al-Qaeda. You need to worry about the modern day contingency fee lawyer. If all this course did for you is prevent you from sitting across the table from these guys once in your life, would it be worth it?
Yeah.
It sure would, because it's expensive and aggravating, and you got sleepless nights sitting across the table from these guys. Anybody got any questions so far? Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to be sure, so you said we create a trust up to, and say if I go like to Florida or Nevada, any place, I can put that property in the trust if I create it in South Carolina?
Is the properties in South Carolina? Or
Yeah,
the
the
other
properties
state?
in South Carolina as well.
Well, you've hit on a really good question, and I'm going to give you this pen that cost me $1.10
Thank you.
with my website on there for asking such a great question. And here's the deal. There's no federal land trust law. It's all state by state. And there are only 6 states that actually have a land trust statute. South Carolina's not one of them. But that doesn't mean they're illegal. It just means you don't have a specific statute to it. So, I'm from Illinois. Illinois does have statute. Illinois is the granddaddy of land trust law. The very first land trust in America was formed in the suburbs of Chicago. But I live in Illinois. All my investment properties in Illinois. I don't use Illinois land trusts. I like Florida and I like Virginia. That means I can form a Florida land trust. I don't have to go to Florida to do this. I can form a Florida land trust in my office in Champaign, Illinois, to hold title to my property in Illinois.
Without being a resident.
Without what?
Without being a resident.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Without being a resident of that state.
Without being a resident of the state, right. And then let's throw another wrench in there. The beneficiary of my land trust can be a Wyoming LLC. Oh my gosh. We got 3 different states' laws going on, right?
There's no like foreign entity, like registration requirement?
No foreign entity registration requirement of a land trust.
Property tax.
No. Pardon me?
Property tax.
Property taxes are the same. This doesn't affect taxes in any way. Everything's the same in reference to your taxes.
Yes, the benefit to doing that to create more of those legal hurdles that you were saying.
Exactly. Because if you sue my trust, first you file a lawsuit against the trustee, because the trustee is the only person named in the county records, if you can find her. Doesn't have her address on the deed. And you get her into court and bend her thumbs back and say, all right, we've got you. Tell us who's the beneficiary, who's really the man behind the curtain here. And she may or may not be able to tell you. Because you'll find out on Saturday that I have what I call are poison pills buried in my trust agreement. And one of them says if my trustee even smells a lawsuit coming, she must immediately resign and forward all documentation to the successor trustee, who lives in another state. So keep on chasing, keep writing those legal checks. Okay? It also says that she can't divulge who the beneficiary of the trust is without somebody buying her an insurance policy, indemnifying her against me for suing her for breach of contract. Because the contract, the trust agreement is a contract, and the contract says she can't tell anybody who the beneficiary is. So we've got lots of little hurdles in there, okay? What's that?
That's like Bob's rental agreement.
Bob's got a good term. Okay, so it got me thinking. You know, we got these sharks swimming in the water out here. Who's looking out for me? And more importantly, in your life, who's looking out for you, right? So I made a list of everybody looking out for you. You want to see it? Okay. So, I've been speaking on this subject for 25 years. I spoke to 28 different clubs like yours last year alone. So I've been in front of thousands and thousands of investors. And I was out in California speaking to a group, and afterwards they invited me to lunch. And we went to lunch at this restaurant. We pulled in the parking lot, and that top license plate was there. And I said, "Oh, I got to get a picture." So I snapped a picture. The plate at the bottom is an attorney in my town, and he's got a reputation. He'll sue anybody on any day for any reason. Everybody in town knows him. They avoid him like the plague. But I have an attorney, he's a really smart guy, and I use him on every transaction, and I highly advise you to always use an attorney in your transactions. They're well worth the money. But it's not his job to protect my assets. It's not his job to lay awake at night worrying about my family's assets. That's my job. And it's your job to do it for your family. And if you don't do it, it ain't gonna get done. Because nobody else is gonna do it except you. Okay, so that's the very first house I bought when I was 19 years old. It looks a lot nicer now than when I had it. But a little 2-bedroom, 1 bath, 1 car detached garage. Does anybody know what pop bottle deposit money is?
Can you turn in the bottles?
Pardon me?
Can you turn them in?
When you turn in the, yeah. I don't know if they still do that because I don't drink pop, but you used to get a nickel.
It's like 5 cents, but
You
it's
get a
like
nickel for a small
bar.
bottle and 10 cents for a large bottle.
Yes.
And before I was old enough to get a job, I would scour the streets and gutters of my town because in the old days, nobody cared about the environment. They just drink their bottle and roll down the window and throw the bottle out in the woods, in the side of the street. So I went along and picked all those up and saved my money. And I bought this house from a veteran. I assumed his loan for $850 cash balance. It was $9,300 was the total purchase price. So, I didn't have a whole lot of help in this endeavor. I was the first kid to go to college in my family. And my parents got divorced. My father was an alcoholic. And he was a really good alcoholic, as a matter of fact. When I was 16 years old, he got in the car, made an obscene gesture to me as he was walking out the door, and left and never came back when I was 16. And the reason why I tell you this pathetic story is that many of you may be able to relate to this. When you start out life with nothing, and you work really, really hard to get something, the last thing you want to do is go back to nothing. Because I don't know if you noticed, whoever said money doesn't buy you happiness, I think didn't have any money. Because it solves 98% of your problems in life. It sure does. And then when you get a little money, you get used to having money. And you don't want to go back to those days with no money. So that's kind of what got me started in this protect your assets mode. I had probably 15 houses in my name in the early 1970s, in my personal name, before I woke up one night and I said, Randy, what are you doing? That is so stupid. Anybody can go to courthouse records, this was before the internet was invented, and look up what you own, what it's assessed for, what your debt is, and with those numbers, they know your net worth, and they determine whether you're suable or not. So I started investigating ways to holding title other than in my name, and came up with this trust concept that has worked pretty well for people. You might have heard the old quote of Rockefeller who said, own nothing and control everything. That's really what we're talking about here. So I think we got the volume up as high as we can here. I wanted you to hear this little testimonial. It's just like a minute long. I was in California speaking to a group. When I was done talking, this man came from the back of the room and he started talking to me, and I said, wait a minute, we got to get a camera going and record this. And here's what he said.
I have to tell you, as an attorney here in California, I pride myself on the ability to basically break apart anything legally. And what you presented is beyond my ability to pierce. The asset protection and the methodology, especially the specific order of going out of state using some of your high-end methods, is just mind-blowing to me. It's something that I can't find a way to pierce it, and I've tried.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. It's nice to have an affirmation like that from time to time. That you're not always believing when you teach this stuff. Some people think, well, they get volunteers and that doesn't work. So when you hear from somebody that's in the streets going after people from time to time, it's nice to know that we put up a barrier between the streets.
You're welcome. You absolutely have. Thank you. Okay.
There was a snake in the room. He was sitting in the back. This attorney has since become a friend of mine. When I go out to California, I'll sit and have a drink with him and we'll have dinner. But it was really nice of him to say that. But he was talking about high-end methods, and what he meant was using the out-of-state stuff as opposed to forming a South Carolina trust on South Carolina property. No matter what state I've lived in, I would not form a trust in that state. Okay, so how do we do this? 4 steps. Step 1 is you create the trust agreement. And I said we got to build this building, right? Before we do step 2, and that is deed the property into the trust. Yes, Bob? Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I keep doing that. So we got to create the deed and trust. And the deed and trust is very much like a warranty deed, which most of you are comfortable with and understand now. The big difference is A deed in trust says that the beneficial interest in this trust is personal property. So what did we do? We took a piece of real estate and put it into a trust and converted it to personal property. Why does that matter? Different law. The real estate laws are different than the personal property trust laws. And the significance there is, and Bob and I were talking about this extensively at dinner, I like to sell houses on a contract. I've discovered that there is a tremendous need in this country of people who want to buy a house that will never qualify for a conventional loan. Why is that? Anybody got an idea? Why would you not qualify? Let's enumerate.
Self-employed.
Self-employed less than 2 years, you're right. Low credit score, you're right. What else? Got the income ratio. Anything else? How about no Social Security number? There are a whole lot of Hispanics in this country who want to buy a house that don't have a Social Security number. But they are good people, they got money, they take care of the property, and I sell it to them.
Right.
And I feel good about it. Yeah, I make money, but who else is going to do that? They'll live their whole life not owning a house unless Randy comes up and with an idea to sell them a house. So I'm doing society a good favor at the same time I'm making money. That, you don't get any better than that, folks. So where can this go wrong? You always got to ask yourself when you're doing these screwy real estate deals, where can this hurt me? And if you're the bank, what's the bank's biggest fear? Well, you stop making payments, right? That's the worst thing they can do to you. So how do I protect myself? I don't know what it takes in your state, but in my state, if I foreclose an interest, it takes me about a year and about $10,000 a week. That kind of shoots the heck out of the profits, doesn't it? So I don't want to do that. So what I do is I put the property into the trust, which creates my interest in the property is none. My interest is in the trust, which is personal property, not real estate. So I sell them on an installment contract the trust, not the real estate. Why is that important? What happens if you buy a truck and finance it at the bank? Do you get the title? No. When do you get the title? When it's paid off in full. And that's the same thing with me. You don't get that trust, which owns the house, until you pay me in full. So if we've got a contract where you're going to make monthly payments to me, amortized over 25 years, with a 5-year balloon, you get it in 5 years. You don't get it now. And what's the bank do if you stop making payments? They come and take it. That's called repossession. That's what I do. I repossess, I don't foreclose. You see the difference? That was worth coming for tonight, folks.
So the trust is in essence a bank.
Yes, ma'am.
If you have a conventional loan,
Conventional loan?
yeah,
Yeah.
is there, you try to create a trust, is there a hurdle that you have to cross with the bank?
Yeah, here's the deal. A conventional loan has to be closed in your name. Now, you can only get 4, maybe 5. Some banks will go a little bit more, and then they're done. So if you got your personal residence financed conventionally, and you got 4 rental properties, you're done. Or you go to what I call a regional bank, a bank that's going to make the loan, keep it in-house, they don't sell it to the feds, and they don't have to follow all those guidelines. And you can have 100 of those loans, or 1,000 of those loans, okay? So the point is, if you're going to use conventional financing, and I suggest you do that because it's a 30-year fixed rate, low rate loan, it's a good deal, it's better than what the non-conventional loans will give you. But if you're going to do that, close the loan, then put the property into trust. So yeah, you were entitled for 3 days, which isn't the end of the world. And then once you get your fill of conventional loans, then you're going to go to to the non-conventional loans, and then you'll take title directly from the seller into your trust. Okay?
Thank you.
I have, you know, I get asked pretty much the same questions as I travel around talking. And I've written a booklet with over 50 reasons to use a trust. And we're only going to cover 12 tonight. So I'm going to pass this sheet around. If you want that free booklet, write your name and, more importantly, your email address legibly. If you don't get it from me, it's because I couldn't read your writing. Legibly, and in the next couple of days, I'll email you a copy of that free book with over 50 reasons to use a trust. Okay?
So if you already own, you already have it in your name.
Deed out of it. Sign a deed over to your trust. Now, what's interesting about that is some people say, well, won't everybody know that I've done that? No. It could have been my trust that bought it from me, right? Nobody knows who is the beneficiary of that trust because the trust agreement is not recorded.
So it all stays private.
All private. Yes, sir.
Yes, if I understood correctly, you said that you should not, if you reside in a certain state, you should and have property in that state. Your trust should not be formed in that state.
Right.
Let's say that before somebody heard of you, they formed their trust in their state, their state where they reside. Can you transfer a trust to a different state?
Yeah, especially if it's a revocable trust. You can amend that trust and say, my South Carolina trust from this day forward is going to be a Florida trust.
Okay.
Yep, sure can. More than that, these expensive things. Yes,
What
sir.
are the 6 states, I know you said Illinois is one of them that have the statute.
You know, the older I get, where's my memory?
Oh.
Well, let's try. Florida, Virginia, Illinois, South Dakota, Indiana, and Hawaii.
Okay, but you said you like Virginia.
I like Virginia, trust law, but the problem with Virginia is you have to have a Virginia trustee, a resident of Virginia.
Oh, I used to live.
So unless you know somebody that can be your trustee, you can't. So then I would go to Florida. Florida's got a terrific statute. In fact, they just amended it 6 years ago, and it says, in so much legal jargon, it says you can't sue the trustee of the land trust, and you can't sue the beneficiary. You can only sue the trust and whatever assets are in the trust. Well, that's pretty powerful stuff. I mean,
Wow.
yeah. So that's why I like to have a Florida trust.
So what about Texas?
Texas does not have a statute, but I mean, they're legal there. Yeah. Okay, so we created that trust agreement. We start with the trust agreement I give you. You fill in the blanks, who's the trustee, who's the beneficiary, who's the successor beneficiary. We'll go through all that on Saturday. The trustee and the beneficiary both sign it, and then you keep that to your records only. Yes, ma'am.
So I think I want to just kind of get some clarity. So you mentioned before that when you have the trust, the beneficiary should be an LLC. Is that what I heard? Is that?
Yeah, especially if it's rental property.
Right.
Maybe if it's your personal residence, maybe not, but yeah, most of the time it's going to be an LLC.
Okay, so if I'm buying a property with my LLC, could I then, like, how do I get it into the trust?
In the trust agreement, you're going to name the beneficiary as your LLC.
Got it, okay.
And these trusts don't have tax returns, they don't have tax ID numbers, and they don't get bank accounts.
Okay.
They are merely title holding vessels,
Okay.
and everything is done at the beneficiary level. So your bank account is in your LLC.
So even your personal property should be in a trust?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I have something somewhere for you. What do we do with it? Here it is. My basic course teaches you how to create land trusts. Provides all the forms you'll ever need. $597. After I wrote that, I had a lot of students come back and say, man, this is great stuff. Can you teach us more? So I wrote the advanced course. The advanced course gets into more asset protection techniques, using the trust with other entities, linking them, that sort of thing. And provides a personal property trust agreement for you to put your personal property in. I think you should put your car, your boat, your motorcycle, your shotgun, your hammer, your ladder, anything you're going to loan to your neighbor who's doing hurting stuff with, and sue you, put it in a personal property trust. So that's this. Each one of these comes with a USB key with all the forms, audio, video, and teaching material to a live audience. This costs you $597. I'm going to give one away right now. Remember, you got the tickets when you came in? Bob, can we draw the winner?
Okay, last call. Everyone has a lottery raffle ticket? Okay. Everyone has a raffle ticket now, right? And, okay, Cindy, would you like to draw one?
Two, 6, 3, 6. 8, 7.
Oh, you got one.
You said 6, 8, 7, right?
Everybody hates the winner, okay? Except the winner. Yes. I don't feel like this. Okay, so we got the trust agreement created. Then we have to deed the property into the trust. Again, the seller, the smart way to do this is the seller's the grantor, they're the one giving the title up to the receiver of the title, and that's your trust and trustee. Don't put your home address on the deed. You know, you do have to put an address on every deed, right? So they know where to send the tax bill to, or your grass is getting too tall, notice? Don't put your home address on the deed. That'll give you up. And while we're talking about home addresses, quit using them. Always use a P.O. box. Don't give anybody your home address unless you're calling an ambulance because you're having a heart attack or you need them to get to your house. There's no reason to give anybody your personal residence address. Okay? Just tell them it's, if the friends come over, just tell them it's the house with a red flag in the yard. Put a green flag or something like that. So how do we transfer the property? We record a deed in trust. It's a little different than a standard warranty deed. Remember, the deed in trust says it's personal property. We record that in the county recorder's office where the property is located. You receive that recorded deed in the mail, or if you can take it in and have them hand stamp it right then. But you keep that as proof of the property that's in your trust. And then you do really kind of relax. You remember the first piece of property you bought, maybe you signed a $100,000, $200,000 note. You went home at night, you put your head down on the pillow and you said, oh, what did I do? It's scary. This is kind of the opposite effect. When you get off the title, it really is kind of a relief factor. So here's what I call a land trust funnel. Let's say you have 3 rental properties. You put each one in a separate trust. You make one LLC the beneficiary. And then if you want to do some estate planning, you can make your living trust the successor member of your LLC. Which means if you're the member and you die, your living trust becomes the member of the LLC. Anybody in here have a living trust right now? Okay, so many of you do. Here's the difference. A living trust is what I call trustee driven. The trustee makes all the decisions on what happens in that trust, and the beneficiaries just go along for the ride. A land trust is just the opposite. It's beneficiary driven, and the trustee just goes along for the ride. She just does what you tell her to do as the beneficiary with that power to tell her. So they're totally different. A living trust, in my opinion, when you're alive, are pretty much worthless, but when you die, they are terrific because they become instantly irrevocable and hard to crack. Good asset protection tools. Now, I was married for 41 years, and my wife died 10 years ago, November 3rd. And this is exactly how we had her assets set up. She had her land trust, she had her LLC, and she had her living trust. And the moment she died, everything dropped right down into that living trust. Automatically, didn't have to file anything. No small estate affidavit had to be filed in her estate. No will had to be filed. Nobody saw anything. Nobody heard anything. Business as usual the next day.
No probate.
No probate. Thank you.
That's good.
That's the biggie. No probate. Yes, sir.
Here's a question. So if you have a living trust right now, what would you recommend in order to go back and do it the correct way, I would say?
Well, I would say do it this way. Make the living trust the bottom of your funnel. Whatever your structure is, have it collapse into the living trust upon your death. But while you're alive, you're in control of everything. Okay?
Because right now, I'm familiar with the trust right now, my family, and all the land and assets are in the living trust right now. There's no LLC right now. So I'm just wondering, should it be restructured?
Well, yeah, because here's the problem. You got all those assets in one trust. You've aggregated them into a spot where they can be attacked.
Gotcha.
So remember, separation of assets. That's how we start at the top.
So you're saying that each property should be its own, have its own individual trust?
Yes.
Got it. So you can have multiple land trusts?
1,000.
Got it.
Trusts,
So you don't have
1,000
a
problems.
policy for each trust, you just need one.
Yeah, one LLC.
Okay.
And we'll talk more about that Saturday, about how many LLCs you need. I helped a guy in my town buy 142 houses in one transaction. And so we had to set up a structure. So we'll go through that on Saturday as well. That living trust works really well upon your death. And all I'm saying is, folks, everybody says they want to make life easy for their heirs. Well, you're not now. If you own real estate in your name and you die tonight, your heir's going to take that through probate.
Yes.
You just made a mess in their life.
Yes.
If you do this, they don't have financial issues at the same time when they have emotional issues by losing them. So if you really love the people you say you love, do something. Okay? Yes,
And that living, the beneficiary of that living trust can be your children?
yes. In fact, I'm the trustee of my wife's living trust. She was the trustee of mine.
Right, okay.
So since she died first, I'm the trustee in control of all her assets that she had while she was alive, and my daughters are the beneficiary,
Okay. Okay.
but they don't have a say in it.
Right, exactly.
Not until the old guy croaks. That's okay, so let's see. 12 out of the 50 reasons avoids probate. Judgments don't attach to the property. Remember my example of the shopping center? That $3.2 million judgment against my friend didn't attach to the shopping center, which saved my butt.
Right.
Okay? Easier, safer management with multiple owners. I mean, just think about it. Let's say we all decided tonight we're going to kick in $5,000 a piece and go out and buy a piece of real estate tomorrow. Could you imagine if all 30 of us had our name on the deed? That'd be crazy. So we put the property in the trust, and all 30 of us could be co-beneficiaries. Okay? Wholesaling and contract assignments are easier. We talked a little bit about that at the beginning. No registered agent, no franchise fees. It's a pass-through with the IRS, no tax return. Pretty simple. Protection against unhappy tenants. How many of you in here are landlords? Okay, so we've got maybe 6 or 8 or 10. putting your property into the trust and not owning real estate really changes the dynamics with your tenants. If I come to you, you're my tenant, and I say, here's your rent increase for next year, you got a lot of inflation going on, it's a 25% increase. You're gonna say, what are you talking about? I saw you drive in that new Cadillac. You don't need 25%. And an argument starts. That is, if he thinks I'm the owner. Now, if I'm just the property manager, and I give you that increase, and you say what you say, I'm really sorry. I'm just doing what the owner told me to do. It just totally diffuses all these conflicting situations you have with your tenants. You know, if it's up to me, I'd lower it. I'm just a property manager. You know, property managers are like one step above you, certain car salesmen, right? Yeah. So I'm just a property manager. I don't aspire to be any more than that in life. Leave me alone. I just can't go to bars over tonight. Leave me alone. Here's your rent. It just changes everything. So, I get invited to speak in Cancun once a year to a group called the Real Estate Mastermind. And I'm down there talking to some people. We go down there and we sit around the pool and we mostly drink. But we do talk enough about real estate so we can deduct the whole trip on the taxes. So I'm sitting there around the pool talking to this young couple across the table from me. And they said, Randy, we bought your homesteading course. They did it online. I didn't know this. And we really appreciate that you wrote that. And I said, well, thanks for buying it, but why did you buy it? What was your motivation? And the man explained to me, he said, well, we own 15 single-family rentals in Dallas. And I was sitting at home one night, on a Friday night with my wife, about 9:30, the doorbell rang. And it was one of my tenants. And he had typed in his address, found out who the owner was, typed in his name, found out where the owner lived, went over and knocked on his door. And he said, my toilet's plugged up. I need you to come out tonight. And my friend said, wait, it's 9:30 on Friday night. I'll be there first thing in the morning, I promise. And the tenant looked him down and said, you don't understand, you're coming out tonight. They had to call the police, have him removed from their home. Can you imagine how traumatic that must have been? Have the cops come into your house and remove somebody? And they realized that night that you don't own this stuff in your name. So they bought my course, they created 15 land trusts, and they put their 15 properties into 15 separate land trusts. And they haven't had that problem since. So I had a lady call me from Florida. She said, how fast can I get your trust course? And I said, what's the hurry? She said, well, I'm down here in Florida. I've got 8 rental properties and my own personal residence. And I just got a call from one of my tenants. And she said, a man knocked on the door looking for me. And I think I know who he is. And I'm not interested. The light bulb went off in her head that night. I don't own this stuff in your name. You see, especially you ladies, this is what we call modern day stalking. I'm at the grocery store. This beautiful young lady is buying groceries next to me. She whips out her ID. I look over, I see her name. I go back home, I type in the computer, find out where she lives, and I drive on over there to see if she wants to do something. That's modern day stalking. You don't want that to happen. 20 of the years that I've been a landlord, I had 2 little girls growing up in my house. And the last thing I needed was some guy I was evicting come knocking at the front door and my 7-year-old daughter. So you see, there's some real life-threatening issues here in this business. It just doesn't pay to own this stuff in your name. Reason number 8, you avoid the due on sale clause, transfer tax, reassessment of sale, and closing costs. What else do you want in life? That's all profit right bottom line to you, and you can avoid those costs. And we'll talk more in detail on Saturday about exactly how to do that. Privacy of ownership helps you avoid ID theft in your name too. If you're not signing things, it helps avoid ID theft. Oh, and it keeps debt off your credit report. You see, if I'm buying property, financing it at the bank's going to have me sign a note and or a personal guarantee, right? But they're not going to loan me money on a non-recourse basis. They're going to say, wait, we need some collateral. I said, well, okay, I'll get this house over here. How about putting a mortgage against it? Yeah, good idea. Who owns the house? Who owns the house? The trust. So the trustee signs the mortgage. I don't sign the mortgage. And they don't report on the trustee because the trustee's not personally liable on the mortgage. What I'm getting at here is I could own millions of dollars worth of real estate and you could run a credit report on me and nothing's going to show.
But Randy, you are signing it, you're signing it as the trustee, but it's not really Randy. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not signing as trustee. My trustee is signing.
Okay,
I'm not the trustee.
So you, okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, somebody else is going to be my trustee.
Okay.
Somebody with a different last name and somebody that lives out of the county in which the property is located are your best trustees. And I'll give you some much more suggestions on Saturday.
I have a question for you. I have a land trust, and I've had it for about probably 10, 15 years. And you know, you have these savvy, just like yourself, we have investors and we have property. They've gotten to the point now they don't know exactly where, but they call me, they're beating around the bush. So how do you, at some point, eventually found, maybe it's nothing for you to worry about, but is that ever a concern?
Well, they shouldn't be calling you if you've got it in a trust with a different trustee than yourself. They shouldn't know.
Well, they don't actually know. But I know I had this one, he's an agent lady, I don't know where she's calling from, but she's called me every 6 months, like clockwork.
Really? I don't know how she's getting your name and number. But it's certainly not off a non-reported document. We talked about repossession instead of foreclosure. I gave you that example. Selling on a lease option. Anybody doing lease options? If you're going to do those, put the property into trust, give the option on the beneficial interest in the trust, not on the property, for the same reason as the contract sale. So give an option on the trust, not the property. We'll talk a lot about options on Saturday too. They are fantastic tools. All right, naming your trust. Most attorneys don't get any, I almost could say all attorneys don't get any land trust training in law school. So unless they take it upon themselves to learn it after the fact, they don't have a clue. And I think anytime I can run my business at a level that attorneys don't understand is a good thing. That's why I like trust. Most of them don't understand it. Those who do understand them confuse them with living trusts and will advise you to name your trust either with your family name or the address of the property in the trust. Call it the 123 Vine Street Trust. I don't think that's very creative. I like to name my trusts in order. I've got a whole chapter in the course on how to name your trust. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. And we'll get into more detail on Saturday. But I like to name my trusts intimidating names. Something that if you are a contingency fee lawyer and you're trolling the waters today looking for somebody to sue to pay the grocery bill, and you come across this name, I want you to step back and say, ooh, I'm not sure I want to sue those guys. Let's go sue somebody else today. Now, what kind of a name would give that impression to an attorney? Anybody got an idea? The Mafia Trust? You're on the right track.
Something or other.
Pardon me?
The Holy Sisters or something or other.
Yeah, how about the Disabled Children's Fund?
Oh, wow.
You want to sue a bunch of disabled children? How about the You know, there's a bunch of money, millions of dollars flowing into Florida right now from South America in briefcases and suitcases of greenbacks. They bring it in and they buy a house to protect that. It's a store of value, $5–10 million house in Florida. It's always going to be there, right? What if I named my trust the Medellin Partners Trust? Nobody's touching those boys, are they? The Medellin cartel. You don't want to sue those guys. They don't play by the rules. And they'll show up at your door, that's for sure. I have 28 Section 8 tenants. And most of the trusts that have the house, that own the house that the Section 8 tenant lives in, the name of that trust is something to do with like the Section 8 Government Fund 12. So I want those tenants, if they got a problem and they look up who the owner is, to say, oh, geez, the government. You know? I'm not going to get anywhere with this. Who do I call? 800 something? I named several of my trusts after the richest guy in my town. Do you guys actually think if you sued the richest guy in this town that you would win?
Right.
I don't care how wrong he was and how right you are, he will win. He'll run you out of money. So you see, there's a big psychology behind just naming the trust. And this is my favorite part of using trust, is naming them. And I'll show you how I do that on Saturday, show you a list of potential trusts as well. So, you know, what's at stake here? Well, money and kids, grandkids, new cars, new houses, college education. It's all in the future or not, right? Depending on what level you succeed and protect your assets. So about almost 20 years ago, I formed something I call the Land Trust University, which is an online learning portal. All my audio, all my video, if I invent a new form, if I update a form, I have a list of land trust friendly lenders, land trust friendly insurance companies. I have a state by state listing, all 50 states. There's a Word document for each state. And in there is everything I know about trusts in that state. Any title companies that will work with you, any attorneys that will work with you, any trustee services. It's a tremendous source of information. And I haven't scratched the surface. If you decide to become my student, I will give you 6 months free membership. It's $37 a month, so that's $222 in value. I'll give that to you for free. I do a monthly coaching call, and those are all recorded. And I'm the only guy on the planet writing a land trust newsletter. So you get that too. So you get a tremendous value for $37, which most of you spend that at Starbucks in 2 days, right? Right. And don't forget, you can deduct it. You can deduct the monthly, and you can deduct the cost of the course. So everything's in there, real life examples. You can listen to me on your phone, on your iPad, whatever, in your car. All the forms you'll ever need the rest of your life are Word documents that you can fill in the blank and alter them to your liking. And in fact, what I would offer to you is have you, if you get my course, like I said, it comes with a USB key with all the forms in an electronic version on there. So fill out your trust agreement, send it to me. We'll set a time to go through it on the phone. Make sure it's exactly the way you want it, you understand it, and then you'll have that template on your computer that you can just crank out over and over again. I also give you a consultation with an associate of mine who sets up LLCs and corporations for my students all over the country. You can talk to him for free, find out what's the best state to form it in, should it be a single member, multi-member, whatever. And then if you decide to use him, that's fine, but you don't have to, there's no obligation to use him. That's just a freebie. One last little testimonial here. This is a young man who found my website while he was in college. His name is TJ, and here's what he said.
I'm from Illinois, I'm 21 years old, and I'm a senior in college. I recently acquired a piece of land down in Florida, and I knew a little bit about land trust, but not much. After finding some research and doing some online, I came across Randy's website. I wasn't too sure about it all at first, but I did call him because he had his number on the webpage, and I eventually bought the Land Trust Made Simple home study course. The course was great, and I was actually able to make my own land trust 100% by myself. No attorneys involved, no realtors involved, and that's me with very little real estate experience. If I can do it, anyone can do it, and I want to reassure you that it is well worth the money.
Yeah, nice testimonial. I didn't even write it. I just sat him down. It was a one-take situation. So the bottom line is you work hard to acquire your assets. You'll spend a little bit of time and a little bit of money learning how to protect those assets as you acquire them. Because you can't wait till the wolf is at the door to start it. I know everybody wants to, but you can't do that. It doesn't work that way. I do have a money-back guarantee for 14 days if you buy my course and read it and decide for whatever reason it's not for you, just send it back to me and I'll give you a full refund. So you got two options. You can buy my course and learn how to protect your family's assets and make more money on each deal with my help, or you can ignore my advice. Those are the two. Set that little noted there. Subliminal suggestion. Now, the training. Again, we're going to register. It's in this room on Saturday. Registration 8:30 to 9. Classes are 9 to 3 or so. I'm not going home till Sunday, so I'll stay until 5 if you want to, if you have questions. I did this slide before I talked to Bob. I would like to offer, if you want to bring an adult child or your significant other or your spouse, I think it'd be important for them to come and understand what's going on. And your attorney, if you want to bring them, you can bring them too. Yes, Bob?
Yeah, I just want to remind you about the limitation. I believe it's 30 people. So if you're going to sign in, please sign on the sheet here, okay?
Yeah, sign up for that sheet on the way out tonight. But it was going to be $49, but we're not going to charge anything. Now, I do encourage you to get at least the home study course tonight and bring it to the class, because that's the book we're going to be going through. But here are the 3 offers I got for you. What I call the elite package is all 4 of my courses. I only have 4 courses. The basic and advanced land trust, an option course, this is my option course, and a privacy and asset protection course. Doesn't talk much about trusts at all. It just is ways that I've discovered over decades to protect my assets in addition to using trusts. Then I have what I call the combo deal. That is just the basic and advanced course, not the option course, not the privacy and asset protection course. These are both $597 a piece, but when I bundle them together, I discounted by almost $300, so $897 will get you this package. It's only $200 more for the elite package of all 4 courses. So if you don't want all 4, just get the 2. If you don't want the 2, just get the basic course, and that's $597. So there are a couple of ways of doing this. You can shoot the QR code that's appropriate to what you're interested in. We've got the courses with us in the back of the room where you can, we've got the QR codes back there where you can shoot it, just fill out the information, show us the receipt, and we'll hand you the course. If you don't want to use QR codes, we've got order forms back there as well. It does also come in this beautiful little package folder that cost me a lot of money to create, but that's that, okay? And then the last thing I've got to tell you is, this is my privacy and asset protection book. Doesn't talk about trusts. It's a 3.0 version. I'm working on the 4.0 version, which I think I'll have by January, which will be updated. This sells for $79 on my website. You'll get this for free as my student. And I think we've got 4 or 5 of them in the back that we can give you a hard copy. Everybody else will get an electronic version. And when I come out with the 4.0 version, there'll be no charge for that as well. This is kind of interesting in that if somebody sues you, hold on a second. If somebody sues you, they're going to get you into court. And they want what's called a citation to discover your assets. Wouldn't it be nice to know the questions they would ask before you go into court? That's what's in this book. All the questions they would ask an individual creditor and a corporate creditor. So if you know what the questions are before, you can contour your life and your assets around the answers that are more satisfying to you than somebody else. Okay. I think I've covered everything. Does anybody have any final questions?
I got a question.
Yes.
I'm closing on my first house in 3 weeks.
You closing on your first house in 3 weeks? Hey.
So what you said, closing costs. Please help me with this closing costs. So if I get this trust done before my closing date and I take it with me with my closing attorney, that will make all the closing costs go away? Am I interpreting that the way?
It won't be. I assume you're financing conventionally, right? Conventionally?
Yes.
So you're going to still have those closing costs. What I'm talking about is once you put the property into a trust, and then you can sell the trust, which is a private transaction, and there will be no closing costs for that. You see what I mean?
I do.
And as a private transaction, nothing gets recorded, so the taxing agencies don't know about it, so they don't reassess, they don't charge transfer tax, blah, blah, blah. So you save it on the sale part. Or you can save it on the buy part too if you're buying from somebody else's trust. So it's a great technique. I mean, what's the average home sell for in this area?
220.
Pardon me?
220.
220. So you're out there, moving and shaking, trying to find some deals, and you run into Grandma and Grandpa, and they've been in this house for 50 years, and they paid $10,000 for it 50 years ago, and now it's worth 220. But because it never sold, it's never been reassessed all the way up to current value. Let's say it's assessed for $100,000. If you buy it and pay $220 for it, the assessment's going to go up in one day to $220, isn't it? But if Grandma and Grandpa put that house in a trust and sell you the trust, which is a non-recorded transaction, the assessment's going to stay at $100,000, which is going to save you a ton of money.
Where does the property taxes go?
Property taxes go to whatever address you put on the deed.
Whose name is it?
The trustee, the trust name, yeah. But you can put any address on a deed. There's no requirement to be your home address or your attorney or whatever. It could be anywhere on the planet as long as you end up getting the mail.
Yeah. That's the most important part.
Okay? So, what we want you to do is pick up the course, do some reading between now and Saturday, bring it with you on Saturday. After you pick up the course, do the sign-up sheet so we know if you're coming on Saturday, because some of you may get the course and not be able to come Saturday. And then we'll meet back in this room at 8:30 on Saturday morning. We'll have tables set up right now, classroom style, so you take notes. And you're going to learn a lot. We've just scratched the surface tonight. So if there was ever a time to clap, I would say it's now. Thank you. All right.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Get out.
Not yet.
Anyway.